Day 4 kicked off our long drive to the east and then the north side of the island with a number of scenic points along the way. Our first stop was this glacier lagoon where icebergs are known to float by silently out to sea, and then some of them will actually wash back up on shore perfectly clear, and if the light hits them just right, they'll have this beautiful rainbow sort of array on this area called Diamond Beach, which is just on the other side of the bay.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that we got to see some seals. I wasn't sure if we were going to see any here. We got to see as many Arctic terns as you'd ever want. And there was also this weird little species of duck called an eider duck, native only to Iceland, and they make a interesting sound. What sound do they make?
They go, "Ow!" which you'll see in some of the footage here.
And another cool thing about this spot, we were there at tide change, so we got to see the glaciers spinning in circles, trying to go out to the ocean.
The driving then continued east, and then we decided to deviate from Route 1 and drove up alongside of one of the fjords. It was a little bit of a quicker route, but we knew that it would also be a really cool scenic route to drive up the side.
I was driving at this time, and I was not mentally prepared for what I was about to undertake. It was a 10% grade, gravel, and water was flowing downhill. We were still early in the season, so all the snow was still melting. At the top, though, was one of the most spectacular views I've ever seen. Somebody was paragliding off the top of the fjord and down into the valley. And then once we reached the other side, we got to see some of the reindeer herds off in the distance.
Sometime later, we stopped for lunch and ended up getting covered by a thick layer of fog up near a lighthouse point. The temperature absolutely plummeted, so you'll see us pull on our winter coats here.
5 minutes down the road, after we ate lunch, it was perfectly clear, and we actually came upon a picnic spot where it was 70 degrees on a beach full of pebbles.
Man, if only we knew that. So the footage you'll look here will look like it's from 2 different days, but it's only 5 to 10 minutes apart, so the weather can rapidly change in Iceland. Later in the day, we decided to stop at a reindeer rescue. They had 2 adults, 1 male and 1 female, and 2 yearlings. The yearlings were rescues from a poaching situation where they had been taken away from their mom far too young, and then were found and taken in by the rescue. The permits for hunting reindeer are supposed to be seasonal and not in the winter when these 2 were found, and they can't survive on their own during that time. So similar to white-tailed deer in the US, the hunting is really only supposed to happen in the fall before they have their calves.
Yeah, both adults that they had at the rescue lost their mom to a car incident when they were young. They were taken in by the rescue and have been thriving at their 40,000 square meter property ever since. They have an entire area they can get away from people if they want to.
Yeah, and you'll see in here both males and females grow antlers. The male antlers are larger, but you'll see both are actually in velvet where they rapidly grow antlers in the springtime when we visited. And they also have these big snowshoe feet, which I have read about, but to actually see was spectacular. And it helps them walk on top of the snow whenever that's there. But since there is no snow this time of year, you might actually hear them clicking on the ground a little bit. They're big, kind of awkward looking feet.
They were still shedding their winter coats while we were there, and it was unseasonably warm, so the 2 babies were hyperventilating and scratching a lot.
Yeah, trying to get all of their fur off in the winter. And it was a spectacular experience to see these beautiful animals up close and then support a small rescue operation, especially as fellow hunters that respect nature and the conservation effort that goes with it. On the road to Maivatn, we drove across what looked like Mars through the highlands. No green, all rocks, no coastline visible, tons of horses around. And then once we got to Maivatn, we stopped at a rather interesting restaurant John had picked out. While we were planning the trip, I told John to find something he wanted to do around this lake. And what do you know? He chooses a restaurant where he can view cows while eating?
This place caught my eye because it pulled up on the map as a farm, but also a restaurant. They make pretty much everything at the farm and serve it fresh. What you see in the picture is the sample platter that we ordered. It has some Arctic char, lamb, the freshest mozz you'll ever have, sticky geyser bread, and then homemade gluten-free bread, which is actually shown on the plate. The border collie they had for herding sheep at the time was helping to milk the cows.
Cute little guy. And it was some of the freshest food that we had and a very wholesome, direct farm to table experience. And then from here, we drove to our campsite and then rested up after a long day of traveling and sightseeing.